All right. So got a whole lot of glare up in here. Okay, so um we are going to continue with our lesson with our API or a sample API. We're building the Futurama app. And let me share my screen. Go ahead and pull that up. Okay. And yeah, share the screen. There we go. All right, there we go. Cool. Okay, so where we left off with this is we have our figures for our what is this characters, and we also have our episodes, and we have a home page. Okay, and what we started to do was we created a folder called routes, and inside of routes we have a router.js file, and this router.js file contains all of the routes for our um, for our different pages. And what it does is when we make a uh, a request on the URL, let me start that up. npm run dev go localhost 3000. So here we are, localhost 3000. When I make a request here in the URL, so I say characters. Oh, I didn't do that. Localhost 3000 slash character. That's what I meant to do. Okay, there we go. What we're doing is when we connect it to the server and the server gets that request, here we are at, where are you? At app.js. We're saying, hey, when you see localhost 3000 slash, then use router. Okay. So then we go to router and you can see here that slash, that same slash here, which is localhost 3000. What it does is it renders a home page. And when I say, hey, when you see slash characters, then what do? Well, get the URL, fetch it, take the response, turn to JSON, then take the data and render this characters page. So that's how it's working so far. So routes, what the routes or what router.js rather, what router.js allows us to do is to take that task away from app, set it aside in router.js. So now router.js is just handling routes and that's it. We have a file to handle just the routing. And we call it the router.js file. And this concept that we're using, again, it's a term I just learned not too long ago. It's called microservices. And that's where you take a big giant task, if you will, and break it up into smaller little tasks so that each individual entity does its own thing. It has its one responsibility and it does that. And so it makes your code scalable. Okay. Um, Also handles the load much better. So what we call load balancing. So you can push things off so everything has its own weight to carry. Um, Also, it helps you with errors when you're trying to debug because you know exactly where to look. Also, the other thing it does is if one microservice is not working, then it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire project is broken. And that's another cool thing about it. So, if, for example, if for whatever reason our episodes route isn't working, that doesn't mean that our characters won't work or any other route will work. So that's a cool thing about handling our code this way. Okay, so we shall continue. The first thing that I would like to do is create some links for this page. In other words, right now I go here and I had to type in the URL up here, and so I want to change that up where there's actual links that we can click on, and it will take care of that for us. So that's what I would like to do. So let's do that. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up a little notey notes. Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's come over here to our sorry. Let's come over here to let's start off at home. Oh, no, let's not do it at home. We're going to go to header. That's where we want to do it. We want to go to our header.ejs. So that's inside of our partials folder. And here we have, you can see here the header and then name, etc. Okay. And what we're going to do is I'm going to create a nav element right here. Give it a class nav, give it an ID of nav, like so. And inside this nav, I'm gonna do the old school way. I'm gonna make a unordered list. And here in the unordered list, I'm going to make an LI. And inside this LI, I'm going to make an H tag. So this is how it's going to be structured. Okay. And so here, the href, which stands for hyperreference, okay, this is basically saying, hey, where is this text linking to? What is it linked to? So in other words, when I click on something, matter of fact, I'll just put this right here. Make this a dead link. That's what this is called. Put Octothorpe right there. And I'll type home. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it twice. Change this to characters. Change this to episodes. Like so. So you can see here inside the nav element, we have a UL. Inside the UL, we have an LI with anchor tag. Href is the hashtag, which is what we call a dead link. And you'll see why in just a moment. And then we have home character episodes. So when I come over here, I refresh my browser, and there you can see there's my links. And again, I'm not worried about styling right now because definitely some things I would do to this, but I just want this to work for right now. Styling will come later. So here we have our links, and this is called a dead link because right now, if I click on, like, say, if I click on characters, if I click on home, it doesn't do anything. Excuse me, it doesn't take me anywhere because I haven't given a specific link for this. So it's not going to go anywhere. It's just there to show that, hey, it's an indication that this is a link here. That's why we call it a dead link, because it's there. It doesn't take us anywhere. But we're about to fix that right now. So notice here, if I hover over the link, if you put your cursor, your pointer cursor over the link, or your mouse rather, you put your mouse over the link. If you look down at the bottom left of your browser window, you'll see that it reads, well, mine reads localhost 3000/characters and then hashtag. So when I hover over this link, it's letting me know, hey, where this is going. What is the path for this? Okay. So all I simply need to do is just change this up. Okay. That's all that I need to do. Okay. And so what I'm going to change it up to is the actual link or the path that I want to use. Real simple. Okay. So here, instead of home, instead of a hashtag, I'm just going to put a slash right there, and that's it. And let's see what happens now when I refresh this. For some reason, it's just taking a little bit longer. I don't know why. Let's see, am I getting any errors? I'm not. I don't have any errors, but I know what I will do. I will remove that from the console. So I'm going to come over here to characters.ejs. Not characters.ejs. I think it's router.ejs. I'm going to get rid of, I don't need to console the data. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Move a little faster now. So now, when I hover over home now, I just see localhost 3000. Okay. So that's what I want. This is saying, hey, when you click on this, it takes you up, voila, there it is right there to the home page, localhost 3000. Cool. So that works. Let's go back to, that was in header.ejs. Yeah. So now we see how that works. If I change this, instead of a hashtag, I need to give a slash first. Okay. In other words, saying, hey, from whatever point we're at, well, localhost 3000, and then this will be slash what, characters, and this one will be slash episodes, excuse me, slash episodes. So just like that, let's see, refresh, localhost 3000. Again, look down at the bottom left, localhost 3000/characters, localhost 3000/episodes. If I click on characters now, cool, it takes me to the characters. If I click on episodes, cool, takes me to episodes. All right, so great. We have links that work. Awesome. Oodalali. Okay, so that's cool. That's one thing I wanted to do. And that's just going to help us out a little bit moving forward with this next thing we're going to do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to build out single pages. Okay. If I go to sample APIs, let me go over there. And let's come over here to Futurama, get rid of that gaudy ad. Okay, so let me go characters. If I run that one, we'll just do this. So here's all my characters. Okay, it's my API for my characters. And let's say I don't want all of these characters. Okay, let's say I just want Dr. Farnsworth. And I can see here that Dr. Farnsworth has an ID of 4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and say characters. And at the end, I'm going to say /4. Make sure you use a slash, because this is now the new endpoint, /4, and there's Hubert J. Farnsworth and just his information. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how we can create a page for a single character. All right, let's do that right now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a single characters.ejs. Okay, so however you do it, if you do it like me from the terminal, that's fine. If you do it inside of Visual Studio Code, that's fine. You don't have to give it a particular name. Like you don't have to say Dr. Farnsworth.ejs. It's just single character.ejs. So I'm going to do it in here. Let me see, how am I set up? So I need to go inside of views. So I'm going to say touch views / pages / single. I'm going to make this, I'm going to do camel case. That's what I like to do. Single character.ejs. Single character single, either which one, something like that. The main thing is that we're getting, information for a single character. Okay. So I got touch views / pages / single character.ejs. Hit enter. Again, if you want to come right in here inside of pages and create a new file and call it single character.ejs, that's up to you. You can do that. Okay. So now that I got that, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and add my header as well as my footer to the single character.ejs. So I'm going to go over to single character.ejs. And remember, we just include, again, we got to use our EJS. So include is be .. /partials / header. I'm so glad I don't have to do a semicolon anymore. Thank you, EJS. Just less mess I got to do. Partials / footer. So same things we've done before. Okay, all this is the same. Because when we're using EJS, we're just creating a template. Okay. And so that's going to allow us to just use the same stuff. We don't have to go and make all kinds of changes and stuff. All right, and I'm going to do a main element with a class main, the ID of main, like I always do. And I will right here making H2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm going to have some fun with this. I'm going to do some EJS, and I'm going to call this character. Store that in right there like so. All right. Now that we've gotten here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this router.js file and bust it up even smaller. Because again, what we did, if you recall from the previous video, we took those routes that were inside of our app.js and then we moved it over into router.js. Okay. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to take these routes that we have in router.js and move them in their own location. So this way, each different set of data or endpoint, if you will, it's not really endpoint. but each individual, I guess, table of data, I guess is what I'll call it for right now, will have its own file, its own microservice. Okay. So how am I going to do that? Well, let's find out. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here to routes, and I'm going to create a new folder inside of routes, and I'm going to name it I'm going to name it API. Yeah, that's what I'm going to name it. So I'm going to say make dir routes / API. So make dir routes / API. Again, you could do that right inside of Visual Studio Code if you want to. It's up to you. Okay. And so in this API folder, this is where I'm going to separate all of my different, I guess, entities or what have you, like characters, like episodes. What else is there? If I want to do cast, I haven't even looked at cast before. Does cast work? Oh, it sure does. Nice. Okay. Well, I could do one for cast. So there you go. So I can, each one of these endpoints will have its own routing structure. Okay. So let's see what that looks like. Here inside of API, I'm working with characters right now. So I'm going to I'm going to call it character routes.js. Character routes.js. Okay, here we are in character routes.js. And the first thing that I want to do, because I'll be using Express for this, is I'm going to go ahead and import Express. So again, that's const Express is going to get require Express. Okay. And then I want the router object from Express. And that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to say const router is going to get, and that's going to be express dot capital R router. Make sure it's a capital express dot router. And then we module dot exports router. And we talked about this in a previous video, but this is like us creating our own middleware. Okay. And so we're going to take this and we're going to import this somewhere else. Okay. So basically what this character routes does, or what it's doing, is this is what happens when we go to localhost 3000 / characters. Okay. And so what are all the different things that we want when we go to localhost 3000 / characters? Okay. Well, one thing we know is we want to be able to display all the characters. Okay. And so let's go ahead and do that now. All right. So to do that, we're simply going to come over here to router. Oh, I need fetch too. So I'm going to take this fetch right here and I'm going to copy that. Yeah, just going to copy for right now. I may just delete it altogether. So I'm in router.js, and this fetch method that we created was fetch function. I'm going to copy it and take it over here to character routes and just paste it in there like so. All right. And then after you've done that, we're going to come down here for our get method for characters, which we already wrote it. Okay. We already wrote it. So all we need to do is just select all of it. I'm just going to Control or Command X. I'm just going to cut it, and I'm going to paste it here inside of character routes. Cool. And once I have it here inside of character routes, the only thing I really need to change is this right here. Here, my path is /characters, okay? Because what I want to happen is I want to say, hey, when I click on localhost 3000 /characters, I want you to render this data, this particular data, the characters. Okay. Well, with the use of this character routes microservice, the way that we're creating it, whenever we get to this endpoint, everything is going to be localhost 3000 /characters. What do I mean by that? What I mean is I won't need this endpoint right here, characters, because this would just be doubling the path, the endpoint, if you will. In other words, this right here, the way that we'll have this set up, excuse me, is going to be localhost 3000 /characters. So I simply just need to remove characters right here. So I remove characters, and everything else we can leave the same. I'm going to do a test on this first before I do my single page. All right. So done with that. And now the next thing I need to do to make sure that this is connected, make sure that this is all working, I'm going to go back to router.js. And what I'm going to do in router.js, I'm going to do that right here below the home. I'm going to say router.use. And what are we going to do? We're going to say, hey, router.use. If you see /characters, I want you to use, I'm going to say require, and we're going to point it to our character routes file. So when you see router.js, when you see characters, then we're going to require ./API/character routes. And that's it. This should work now. So let's look at this again. Okay. So we cut this endpoint, well, this route rather, that renders our characters page. We cut it from router.js and moved it over here into character routes.js. We also cut or copied our fetch method and pasted it inside of character routes. Once we did that, our get method, instead of having router.get/characters, we just have an empty slash here, or just have a slash standing by itself. Because in router.js, we're saying, hey, use the /characters. Well, when you see /characters, use API character routes. So we took that that service and pushed it down to another level, so that way anything dealing with characters can be handled here inside of character routes. And now come back over here and refresh. If I come over here, hover over characters, I still see characters shows up right there. I click on it, and there goes my characters page. It worked. Success. Cool. All right. But now let's get to this last point. How do I get just a single character? Okay. Again, when we come over here and look at the API, we know that there's an endpoint, which is, 4, that tells us, the actual, the single character. Okay. So we can handle that inside of character routes because again, this is localhost 3000/characters. So this will be handled here in our character routes. We're just going to make a get method for it. I'm going to say router.get. I'm going to say a slash. And what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to say a colon ID. Okay. And takes a request and response, just like all the others. All right. And then we need to get the URL. So I'm going to say const URL is going to get, I'm just going to copy this URL right here. Or you can copy the URL from here. We're going to make a little change to it. But go ahead and copy that URL. I need a backtick and I'm going to paste. Okay. So I got https://api.sampleapis.com/futurama/character/ and here instead of 4, watch this. I'm going to change this up. What am I going to change it to? I need to get the ID. So whatever this ID is right here, I need to pass that over here. How do I do that? Oh, here's how we do it. Recall many years ago when I talked about this with Express and with our getting data, fetching data, such and such with our APIs. Everything with the web is under 2 governing bodies, if you will, or objects: the response object and request object. Okay. So we're going to get this right here, this ID, and that is a part of the request object. So I can say here, const ID is request.params.id. So basically what we're saying is, hey, from the params of the request, which is this information here, these slashes, whatever follows the slashes, you can think of those are the parameters, okay, or the params. And I'm going to name it ID. So request.params.id. That's the name that we give it. This can be foo if we want to. If I call that foo and I name that foo right there, it knows exactly what I'm talking about, okay? I'm naming it ID here. So I'm going to call this ID. So const ID gets request.params.id. And what I'm going to do is, instead of this 4 right here, and again, make sure you use your $ curly brace. This is where it's learning string template literals. This is where this comes into play. Passing our ID right there. So now what we've done is we've added this extra endpoint to our URL, and from that we'll be fetching this data here. Okay, so pretty cool. And I'm going to say fetch the URL. All this looks the same. Then take the response and response.json. Then take the data. And what do you want me to do with this data? Well, one thing we can do is, well, before we go further, let's do what we know. We're going to response.render, and this is going to be what? Pages/single character. The title can be whatever the character's name is. So I'm going to say title will be I'll just say data.name.first. We'll do it like this. We'll say data, oh, data.name.first. I'll just put the first name right there. The name, same thing. Data.name.first. And we also have what we had something called character. And this I'll say data.name.first space data.name.last. Okay. So far, so good. Looking good right now. So again, when I click on, or when I add an ID, okay, it's going to pass in this data right here. Well, it's going to fetch it and then render this data. Now, a couple things. We may want to, add some security or what have you to this later. We want to make sure that ID is actually a number, right? Because if it's not a number, we don't want it to do anything. When send it, an error. But if it's because we don't want somebody passing in food right there. But we can also look at how we can build out an error page and whatnot. So there's a lot of other stuff we could do with this. But let's test this out and see if this works. Okay, so let's go back here. And so we have localhost 3000/characters. I'm going to say character/4 and hit enter. And do I have an error? Oh, looks like character routes. Okay, let's see. Unexpected token. That should be fixed now. Yeah. Oh, okay, there it is. Cool. They receive Hubert Farnsworth. All right, cool. So it works. I got the single character now. So now I know that works. Let's go ahead and pass in all that data. So again, I can say comma, and then just add the data right there. So now we got the data, which means that we can fix up our single character page if we want to. Cool. Let's see what kind of data they have for the single character. I got their age, got image. Well, I know I want to do the image, the gender, species, home planet, occupation, sayings. And sayings is an array, so I got an idea what we could do with the sayings. Okay, so yeah, let's just start putting some data, displaying some data. All right. Let's go to single character. So right now we have just character there. And what I'll do is, first thing I'll do is I'll make an image. So make an image element. And the source for this, and again, this is where we use our EJS. And this will be data.image, I think is what we called it. Yeah, or images, excuse me. Data.images.main. So that way we can get this particular image. So data.images.main. Please don't forget to close your EJS, okay? So it should look like this. And again, pause the video if you need to. All right. And then here, my alt, I'll just say image of and then I'll just say, I can just say character right there. I can just pass that in. It knows what character is. Let's come back over here. I just want to refresh and see what we're looking like. Yep, cool. All right. Now I'm gonna get some data from them. So I'll get their stats. So I'll make a div right here. And then what do I want to do? Let's see, age, gender, species, home planet, occupation. So I'll just make an unordered list. I'll just make this real simple right now. So this li will be data.age. Then we got data.gender. Well, I'll put age right here as well. I'll say age and then gender. Data.gender. Make sure it's spelled correctly. Home, well, you got species. Data.species. But you can see here, like, once you get access to the data, you can do pretty much whatever it is you want to do. It's all up to you. The thing is, like, how do you get the data? And I hope that these lessons, I'm covering it thoroughly enough, and again, giving good demonstrations so that you can see how we get the data. And no, it's not easy, but once you start doing it, getting the hang of it, it becomes almost rote memory. I'll say that much. I've done this quite a bit, and I still gotta, look through some things a couple times, but I definitely understand what I'm doing. What's next? Home planet. Data dot. How do they write it? Home planet camel case. As they should. I'm telling them what to do. Home planet. And then occupation. Data that occupation. All right. And so you can see all of these are inside of LIs, which is inside of a UL. Basically, we just made a list with their stats. I come over here and I refresh, and there you can see there's all the stats. So last thing I want to do, well, not the last thing I want to do, but what I would like to do to this is, oh, not there. I want to do something with these sayings. Obviously, I'm not going to display all of the sayings. That's weird. I don't want to do that. But what I would like to do is get a random saying. Okay, so I want to pick one of these sayings at random, and so each time you refresh on that character, then it should randomly pull from one of their sayings. So let's do that. How will we do that? Well, we're going to start off in character routes, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to use math.random or math.floor, math.random here inside of our single character. No, we want to randomly select a saying when we make a request, okay, or when we get a response, rather. So let's come back over here to character routes. So, here we're making our fetch call. We got the data. We took the response. turn JSON, then we take the data. And what we can do right here is I can say, hey, const random saying is going to get here. I can use JavaScript to randomly select an item from this array of sayings. How cool is that? So I could say const random saying is going to be data dot sayings, because that is the array that we're pulling from. So data dot sayings, but I want to pull from that array. Okay, so I open up my square brackets, and this is going to be what? Math dot floor, math dot random times data dot sayings dot length. Just like what we've done before. Okay, it's no different. Data dot sayings is an array. Okay, and we know how to randomly select items from an array using math.floor, math.random. And yeah, we take that number, store it in the square brackets. That's going to pull randomly, or should pull randomly, from data.sayings. We're storing that in a container called random saying. And then we'll just add that right here. Add that to our object that we're rendering. Pretty cool. And so now all we got to do is come back over here to single character, and I'll put that saying, that quote, underneath the H2. So I'll do a P tag right here. I'll make like some quotes right there, and then inside of those quotes, I'm gonna inject some EJS, and it's just gonna be random saying. This should work. And so now let's come back over here and refresh. Yes, it's the apocalypse, all right. I always thought I'd have a hand in it. Doomsday device. Now the ball's in Farnsworth court. I suppose I could part with one and still be feared. Cool. So each time I refresh, I'm getting a random quote. Oh, and by the way, let's say I change this to number 6, whoever 6 is. Well, there's Hermes. Hermes information. Welcome to Stampy Town, population 5. Sweet giant anteater of Santa Anita. So cool, that works. 2, Taranga. And you refresh each time, random quote. Lurr. Cool. So it works. This is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. One last thing I want to do in this video is let's go back to those links that we talked about. So right now we have links here for each. We can go home, characters, episodes. Okay, so if we come over here to characters, I think what I would like is I would like to be able to click on maybe the character's name, and it would take me to that individual page. How's that sound? Sounds great. Cool. That's what we're going to do. So let's do that. We'll need to do that inside of our character.ejs. So here we are, characters.ejs. This displays all of the characters. And what we need to do is here in our fig caption, this is where we want to click on the fig caption right there, that will take us to the individual page. So how do we do that? Simply what we're going to do inside this fig caption, I'm going to create an anchor element. It's going to have an href in here. I'm going to take this item.first name, item.last name, move that inside of the anchor element like so, and put a hashtag right there. So you should have something that looks like this. Again, pause the video if you need to. Get it to look like this right here. Have this kind of structure. All right. Now when I come back over here and I refresh, and now each one of the characters' names is clickable. All right, cool. What I need to do now is I need to change this from this hashtag. Again, we need to point where we want to go. Well, I want to go to characters, so I'm going to say slash characters, and then slash what? Whatever their ID is. So I can say item.id. That's where my EJS comes into play. Let's see if this works. Refresh. If I hover over Bender and I see localhost 3000 slash character slash 3 at the bottom left, I click on it. Bam. Takes me to his page. Awesome. Cool. So as you can see here, there's a whole lot that we can do. Okay. And this is what, like, the cool thing about Express, what it allows us to do is to build this out, and it's scalable. Okay. Because I don't have to go and make a single page for each one of these characters for Futurama, because that can get really long, right? We can do some deep cuts in Futurama. There's some characters that were there for like one episode or what have you, and we can make character pages for them. I don't have to do all that, because what I can do with Express and with the use of EJS or some other view engine is create the templates. I create the templates for it, and then all I need to do is connect all my routes and my paths together correctly, and that will take care of that. So if we go back and look at our character routes.js, okay, again, character routes.js is handling everything for the characters. So that means that router.js doesn't have to do it anymore, because we haven't done that. We do the same thing with episodes, FYI. Okay. I would make those changes in there. So the only thing that you would have inside of your router.js file would be the home route, your router.use, and what point to whatever endpoint you want to go to, and module.exports. Also an error page, which we got to get to that at some point. They changed some things up with Express 5, so I'm kind of afraid, but we'll get to it. But yeah, we moved that routing system over to character routes. So now character routes is handling everything with characters. If we do cast, if we do episodes, we move those to their own individual route file or route service, so that they will handle that, and nothing else. It won't affect anything else. And all of those individual routes will meet up at router.js. Then router.js is just going to go to our app.js. And that's how we handle microservices. And again, this makes our project much more scalable. Because it doesn't have to be 15 characters. It could be 100,000 characters. It will handle the weight the exact same. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson here. In the next one, I think I'm going to try to tackle errors. I got to do a little research on errors with Express 5, so they changed up some things with error handling, and I don't necessarily like it. Maybe I don't like it because I don't know it yet, but I like the way that it was. Anyways, um, we'll try to take care of that in the next video. So I would encourage you before you get to the next video is see if you can do the episodes by yourself, and then see if you can add the cast routing to your project, and you'll see just how easy it becomes and how scalable it is. So practice with that before we go to the next lesson, or the next video rather. Um, if you enjoy these, subscribe, comment, share, like. Even if you don't like it, comment and tell me, what some things I could do better. Besides type slower, that's not happening. uh, um, but yeah, I need some feedback. I know I'm not perfect at this, but I do my best. But my best can always stand to be a little bit better. So there it is. Yeah, I will catch you on the other side of this video.